So what do y'all think about when you hear of a Gen 100 Alternator pilot? Do you think about it in the same way as you think about a Gen 100 pilot? Or you're just like, whatever, he only uses one weapon? But it also brings to mind this quote that says, "Fear not the man who has trained over 1,000 kicks, but more the one that has trained for one kick 1,000 times." It's one of those jack of all trades kind of things, master of none, master chief, take it whichever way you want. But regardless, what does it mean to be Gen 100 in any kind of game? Remember Call of Duty Prestige? Every game kind of has this kind of thing. And to me, it's never really meant that much, to be honest. It's just a measurement of time to me. Because I know that there are some people that are not going to take the same amount of time or even bother even going into that kind of system, are kind of like Dragon Ball characters that are hiding their true power level. When they go from meme guns to alternators, cars, and Spitfires, that's when things get serious in this game. It's 2020. If you're still lasering Titans, that's so last year. Have you guys noticed that I run the Gravity Star as my primary? I like the versatility of it. My grapple is still recharging. I did that second jump really early because I didn't want them to hear the boosters. The second jump is the booster that's super loud. The first one isn't too bad. That's why it actually gives you a little bit of an advantage if you're somebody who can bunny hop without using their double jump. You're a little bit more stealthy that way. You know what the thing about like shooting people with lasers or just shooting them with your alternator even when you're out of range is that it just puts a little bit of pressure on, and it just makes it that much harder for them to predict your next move. Like, you're going to be able to see where this guy is staring off to because he just assumes I just kept going in the general direction he last saw me. Otherwise, there'd be no reason for him to be staring into his spawn. You could also hear him shooting at me. I tried to pretty much ignore it and make like I didn't notice it at all, so he didn't see the approach coming. And it's going to be like a two-part montage because all I wanted to show you guys is pretty much everything I've learned about like just standard combat in this game.
What a sharpshooter.
When he gets caught by the Gravity Star, he's like, okay, I'm gonna get blown up, and then he gets lasered. So right now I'm just taking my time. There's been a big bottleneck in this game. If I take a little time to just set up a nice flank, you can just clean up. And the funny thing is that the better you get at this game, the faster you are. So setups take less time, but it still requires a little bit of patience because it's really easy in this game to actually fly in there and just trade out two guys if you're just somebody who doesn't care about your life but you're moving fast. It's like, yeah, you'll probably get some kills, but when you're moving that fast, you're running into people like quickly as well. Does that make sense to you guys? I hope so. Let's keep going. You gotta make sure you're hitting your feet on anything you can find because all it does is give you back your second jump. That's why I always skid the ground when I'm using my grappling hook to change directions and go off the ground like that because it doesn't cost me anything and I get back my other jump. It just makes you that much more versatile. Like using your double jump in standard combat, like that's the end of the line. If you don't get the kill by then, it's over for you. That's why it's never a good idea to do a double jump unless you're going to be jumping onto a wall, going into a slide. Like, you got to do something because after your double jump, you're a sitting duck. As in Ion, if you do a double jump, you're probably going to end up getting lasered because there's nothing else you can do unless, of course, you're running phase or grapple. Like, there's things you can do, but typically after a double jump, you're pretty much set in your ways. Even if you're using grapple, once you've used your double jump, that's what gives you your oomph for you to be able to pull yourself to the grapple. So if you lose that, it goes so slow, it doesn't help you as much. If you can serve that double jump and throw it into your grapple, then you may have a good chance of getting away because you can boost yourself quite nicely in any direction. But the takeaway from this video is don't laser Titans, laser pilots. That's where it's at. And never double jump. Absolutely never. Obviously there's scenarios, but try to avoid them. It is so risky unless you're setting up to run on a wall or something. Seriously, that is the takeaway from I guess 0 to 100. That is the one thing I've learned about this game. That and using one of the meta guns, like the real meta guns, also doesn't hurt. When you're using these guns, then you can like trash talk people using a Spitfire, R101, and the carbine. You're all in the same boat, so you guys could just like go at each other because you guys are just cut from the same cloth at that point. Alright, has this always been a thing? Can you always just walk up that? Am I missing something? Do I play this game at all? Alright, we're at least gonna trade out. That's the sound of somebody breaking away from the grappling hook. So is this typical alternator play? It's like, yeah, for the most part. The thing about the alternator is just so nice to fall back on a really reliable weapon. It lets you like put yourself right in the thick of things, and this is really the other rule about alternator fights. It's like never panic and start holding down the trigger. If you are in like, you have to be in complete red screen, just being one shot to start letting it fly like that. Otherwise, in my experience, it always pays off to just tap fire. Always. Even when you feel like you need to kill right away, it's like you're gonna miss if you hold down that trigger. You are gonna miss. I don't know what's with the Spectre. Like, he's like the cruelest robot ever. He's just been like maiming this guy in front of me. Like, shot out his kneecap earlier, got him in the shoulder. I think he got one off of his helmet, just dinged him. Yeah, those guys are pretty lethal. I'm gonna see if I can make them work a little bit. I gave up on them pretty early on in the game, but I'm gonna try one more time. But I feel like one Scorch comes in, sees the whole like lot of them, and just goes like, "Be gone!" Waves his hand. Nothing left. He got the kill, by the way. You saw it in the points, right? He killed a grunt. Finally finished this kill. Anyways, the other thing I wanted to showcase was obviously a little bit of Titan play, because all of us saying is that if anybody's Gen 100 in this game, you're gonna have to assume they're decently well-rounded. Because that's a lot of time to be playing this game, and I'm sure they've been exposed to practically everything. Even if they don't use it themselves, you can usually infer quite a bit from just playing the same things over and over again. Me versus Tone as an Ion, I feel like it's a pretty easy fight. Something I've really learned about Titan fights, though, in attrition, like, yes, being good at 1v1 versus Titans is good, but what's even better is having the awareness to actually pair yourself up with your own Titans as well. My face when I spent all that energy trying to shoot that pilot, and then there's another Titan. This is a little bit risky, but he just put up his shield, right? So why would he charge and lose it? Like, that's risky for him. So that was a pretty nice opening for me to get my energy back, and that's what really helps in this fight. As soon as you drop his shields, by the way, the pilot is exposed, so it's usually a good idea to try to get rid of him as soon as possible, and then get back into the Titan fight. I really want to cast this, but I want to go back to my original point, and that was about setting yourself up with your own Titans around you. That really makes the biggest difference in attrition. So if you want another takeaway of something you should be trying to do, it's definitely that. Set yourself up with your own teammates when you're getting into your Titan. It's going to make your life so much better. Supporting an Ion or a Scorch, like, it just makes it so much better for them too, because those two units are so slow, they need that support. It's real easy for them to get flooded by pilots and Titans because they can't really maneuver themselves to safety. So as an Ion, whenever I see a Legion or a Scorch, I always try to pair up with them, and I find that the synergy is just amazing. And that brings us to the end of this video, so if you guys have some feedback or just want to let me know what you guys thought about it, and anything that is really related, anything about being Gen 100, anything about experience. You know what the funny thing is about this video, because I had put away my alternator for so long, I think I could have gotten this done, like, I left off at 96 or 94, something like that. And that was about a year ago before I stopped using the alternator. And going back to it, I played alternator the last few days, man. It's like, okay, the meta weapon is real. Like, I forgot what it was like to like really get into the zone of it and start challenging some of these stronger weapons. And what it really did do was give me back like my competitive edge. And the thing about my competitive edge is that it's a lot different than the way I've been playing. Because if you're using a lower tier gun, anything with a grenadier, and I pretty much won't shoot you with a regular gun. It's hard for me to do that because I feel like a dick, and some of the people I did recognize, but I was just straight up shooting a lot of people with the alternator. I would do a couple of grabs. Well, you guys saw the montage, obviously I still do moves, but again, it brought me back into a competitive mindset that I didn't have for a really long time. And the thing is, you also have to nurture that, because I know it took me a while to get into it where I was just like straight up shooting people. Because this is really more so what I do a lot of the time. I get into these weird like little scenarios and then I just try to push them. But to get back into just like alternator mode where you just shoot everything walking, it's a different kind of game altogether. 30+ kill games are like so common with these kind of meta weapons. But anyways, we're gonna leave it at that for this episode. I hope you all enjoyed it. I'm Paper, cut to you, and I'll see you guys next time. By the way, I have some PC upgrades coming in, so I'm going to be able to start streaming again in a higher quality. So that's something to look forward to.